I worked a shrimp boat called the Melissa on the Gulf. Hot, sweaty work, but all the shrimp you could eat. So there's that. Captain Mike was my boss, a wizened old salt, rough around the edges, but a good man and a good boss. I worked with him out in the open waters for years before we split, and here's what happened. So one day we were out, early in an attempt to beat the other boats and get a good haul. I start cranking up the nets, position them over the collecting bin, and let them go. A whole shit ton of shrimp come piling out this morning. Today is going to be a good and profitable trip at this rate, but I look up at the nets and I see something caught up in it. Probably driftwood, but I gotta get it down or else it'll rip the nets. I drop them down so I can pull it off, but it's definitely not driftwood, and I don't know what it is. I get closer and it appears to be an arm, like a child's arm, but it's not. It's mottled green with brown flecks, but the texture almost seems like sandpaper, like shark skin. Thin, long fingers, almost 5 inches long, if I can call them fingers. They're webbed to one another with a thin layer of skin, almost translucent in the sun. I've never seen anything like it. Short, pointed claws where fingernails would be in a person. I look down to the end of the arm and it looks like it's been twisted and broken, caught in the nets. And down to where the shoulder would be, it was sawed or gnawed off in a hurry by something dull. Dark red blood drips off of it, pooling on the deck. I must have been in a trance, staring at the odd thing, because the next thing I remember is Captain Mike screaming down at me, "Get that fucking thing off the boat right now." I snap and quickly work it free, tossing it in the water as fast as I can. Some of the blood stains my hands and my shirt, but I rinse it off. It's not like the first time something's bled on me out here. As I clean up, I realize Mike has turned the boat around, and we're heading back to port. It's not even 10 and he's calling it a day. I have bills to pay. Maybe 100 pounds of shrimp isn't going to cut it. I'm about to have a few words with the captain, but one look at him and I see something is clearly off. He keeps glancing at the sides of the boats as he speeds up. And while I'm tidying up, I see him pull out the emergency flare gun and check it, pulling out the extra flares too. I guess this isn't the time to bother him. We get back, and as I finish up, Mike comes over to me and hands me $400. Hell of a lot more than I'd make normally. And as I take his money, his hand grabs mine tightly and he pulls me in. "Today's a short day. This is extra for you to keep quiet about why we had a short day." I just look at him and say, "All right, I'll see you tomorrow." He lets my hand go and starts looking at the water. He seems lost. Uneasy. This is a man who has spent his whole damn life on a boat. I feel uncomfortable just seeing how uncertain he is. "Yeah, I guess. Go out and have a few drinks. I know I will," he says to me. Odd morning, but with pay like this, I hope I find one of those arm things every damn day. That evening, I find myself at the local bar, closest one to the waterfront, where all the working stiffs congregate. We'd been buying rounds for a few hours, bullshitting around work and sex and general nothings. I've got a pretty good load on and my curiosity gets the better of me. I ask in a low tone, "So, what's the strangest thing you've ever bought up in the nets?" And don't fucking say tires. I mean, a whole car would be weird, but a tire's like all the time. I get a couple of answers. Will once found one of those inflatable sex dolls. Rick found a box with a whole set of Encyclopedia Britannicas. John found not one, but 2 individual boots, a pair. Now that's not odd, but what was odd is that they were his exact size. Hell, he was even wearing them that night. I push a little further. "Yeah, but have you ever seen anything unnatural, like you couldn't explain it?" I get a chorus of nods, but Kirk suddenly gets real quiet, starts saying not to ask about that, and stares intently at the sweat beating off of his glass. I think I got all I can now, information-wise. Now for a couple more beers. I'm flushed for today. The next morning, my alarm goes off at 7:30, and I dutifully go off at the alarm in a swarm of profanity. My head feels like it's going to explode, and honestly, I wish it would. I dutifully crack open a club soda, swallow some ibuprofen, and turn up a hot shower. And by 8 o'clock, I'm recovering and I'm on my way to the docks. I wander up to the Melissa, Captain Mike's boat. He's muttering something under his breath, staring at the deck. Once I walk up, the deck's been all scratched to hell. Deep, long rakes intently scratching all over the place. Most of them seem to congregate where the net's release, where the blood spilled yesterday. I stand behind Mike for a few minutes until he acknowledges me. "We're not going out today. Not like this. Sorry," he says to me. I look at him and I say, "Well, all right, but I gotta work, I'm gonna ask around and see if anyone else is short a deckhand." "Do what you gotta do. See you tomorrow." "Yeah, sure," I say. I look out and find another boat short a man. I like Mike. Worked with him for years. But I work for paper, not a man. If he doesn't get his shit together, I'll have to find another ship. We go out and have an uneventful day. Come back and go to the bar and sleep. I end up at the docks again, 8 a.m. sharp. The captain's got a whole load of bleach and cleaners. I wonder what's up. I walk over and he says to me, "I'll pay you double if you help me lathe, scrape, and cut down the deck and so we can refinish it. These scrapes and stains are bad for the boat." I look at him, I think, shit, that's a lot of work, but double the pay is double the pay. Mike might be losing it, but I won't stop him from paying me that much. I agree, it's a long day, much harder than our usual trips. Still profitable though. Before I leave, Mike asked me to help him pull down the nets. Now that request stands out to me to this day. They're a bitch to move, they're heavy and unwieldy. You usually only do it if you get a rip or something out. But these are perfectly good. As I leave, I see Mike pile them out on the beach, pour diesel on top, and light them up. It doesn't make any sense to me, burning good nets like that, and why burning? After working my hands and back that hard, I needed a beer. I head out to the bar, and I spot Kirk at the bar. I fall in next to him, and we talk for a bit, starting with the weather. For other people, that may sound like timid conversation, but out here, it's vital information. Eventually, I get enough in me and we start talking about our boats, bitching about the bosses. It starts off as good-natured pressure release, but then I start bitching about all the extra work I had to do today with the deck and the nets. Kirk cuts me off abruptly. He's not crazy. You need to find another boat, maybe somewhere a little further up the coast. And that's all I get out of him. He's like a stone wall after that. I'd assumed Mike had spent a few too many years under the sun, baking his brains, but Kirk is usually pretty good with advice. Still, the next morning I had to talk to Mike. We finished restoring the decks, and now he's talking about possible residue on the sides of the propellers. Says he wants to scrape those next. Now this is crazy. It's way beyond a two-man job. You need to dry dock a boat for all he wants. It's the start of the season, and I know he doesn't have enough cash lying around for that. I spend the day trying to pressure wash the sides of the boat as a cheaper fix. At the end of the day, Mike slips me a few $100s and I look right into his eye. "I don't want to go out there, not with a ship like this. It's not ready," he says to me. "All right, but if there's no work for me, I need to look elsewhere," I say to him. He gives me a firm handshake and looks me right in the eye. Something is welling behind those eyes, but he fights it back. He turns to organize up the ropes. I notice that he's got a heavy revolver clipped to his side. It's not unusual for a boat to have a gun on board, but a hand cannon on your person? I'm starting to really worry about Mike. This is not normal behavior. I'm not sure if I can talk to anyone about this just yet either. I flounder a bit, but find a job after a few days. I still see Captain Mike cleaning off the Melissa every damn day. When I go to the docks, he's there scrubbing. When I leave, he's still scrubbing. There are new scrapes all over the hull, like something was scratching its way climbing up. Mike's become a pariah on the docks. No one wants to talk about it, and when they do, it's in low, hushed tones. Eventually, Captain Mike decides Melissa is finally clean, or he can't afford to go on without another day's bounty. He hires Carlos, the new guy on the docks, and they go out. I make a point of breaking the silence and talk to Mike to check in after they return at the end of the day. They've been catching much less than usual, like half, if not worse. Still, he's getting back out on the water, and that's gotta be good for him. Carlos, on the other hand, says he's been a little freaked out by how the sharks seem to all tail them. I try to put him at rest, tell him sharks aren't that big a deal. They're really just opportunistic bastards. I lie and make him feel a little better, but is it really a lie? One day, the Melissa doesn't come back. I wait at the dock, searching the horizon. It gets dark. Mark usually doesn't stay out that late. I go to the bar that night and drink my body weight in vodka. Weeks later, another captain finds the Melissa floating a few miles out to sea. I wasn't there, so the rest is hearsay and rumor. The police report is still sealed. Apparently, it was a bloodbath. Blood dried onto the decks, most of it right under the nets. Pieces of viscera scattered everywhere, at least the pieces that the seagulls hadn't eaten. The pilot room saw some of the worst of it. Just guts everywhere, some tufts of hair and skin too. Like someone was flayed by somebody who either didn't know what they were doing or was too enthusiastic to do it right. Mike used to sit right there in the pilot house. Mike's revolver was found there too. 4 of the 6 shots had been fired, but no idea if anybody was hit. But who could have told with all the blood on the decks? In the deck, they found a long piece of metal embedded deep in the wood. It looked like a piece of an old boat anchor. It had been crudely sharpened. The investigation wrapped up. Definitely foul play is the conclusion. Maritime law says that the dead boat found at sea can become the property of whoever finds them first. Here's the thing. The captain who found it wanted absolutely no part of it. He refused to even set foot on it. He had it sunk over by the reefs. He even took his own ship and put it in dry dock for the season to scrape off the wood and have it sanitized and refinished. He was talking about selling it and moving up to different places. He said the waters weren't as hospitable as they used to be.